I'm your host, Scott Norton, and welcome to At Large. On this show, I talk to world-class creatives who use business to bring their ideas to life. We'll hear about their creative practices, their most interesting stories, and the lessons that'll inspire you the way that they've inspired me. Working from a home office with a built-in test kitchen, Jerry Greenberg has launched 5 different restaurant concepts with menus that span from sushi rolls to pasta to cheesesteaks. The oldest and most numerous of these restaurants is the world-renowned Sugarfish, which has earned a cult following for its precisely architected experience of sushi. Tall, trim, and totally composed, Jerry is the opposite of what you'd expect a restaurateur to look like. Yes, he did start a technology company that he took public in the 90s, but no, as he goes out of his way to explain, he's not just the business guy. It's all about the food for him. I loved hearing from Jerry about how he and his partners think systematically about each restaurant they open, twisting it like a Rubik's Cube until it's perfectly dialed. They work in service of that singular moment when a guest takes a bite and says, damn, that's good. I present to you a restaurateur, business artist, and obsessive entrepreneur. This is Jerry Greenberg, at large. Jerry Greenberg, it's great to have you here.
Oh, it's great to be here, Scott.
I'm so glad that we connected, and I'm so glad that you've got the energy and enthusiasm to sit down and chat.
Looking forward to it.
Excellent. So take me back to kind of how did this all happen? Like I heard that there was a trip to Italy that you went on. I mean, take me back to the earliest days of Sugarfish and meeting Chef Nozawa. Where did it all start?
Yeah, well, the earliest days go back to the mid '90s, way back. So the Italy trip you're talking about was about 10 years later.
Mm-hmm.
But in '95, my wife, who at the time was not my wife, and I, when I flew to LA for a weekend, I just looked for the best sushi that I could. I would do that in any city I went to. What's the best sushi? I'd look at Zagat's, old school, and try to find something. And there was this thing in the valley, which meant nothing to me because I didn't know LA, but my wife was living here. So we went over, and to me, it just redefined what sushi was. I thought I had had sushi before. I had a bite of this food there, and this is crazy. We went for lunch. We went back for dinner.
And this is Sushi Nozawa in Studio City?
Yep, that's the one, the place many people have been. And I actually lived on the East Coast, but I still ate, and he was closed on the weekends, but I still ate there frequently enough that he and I would talk about fish, and he was known to be a tough guy, but that's not really who he is. It's just if you respect what he's doing and show interest. But long story short, my wife asked if he would possibly cater a surprise birthday party for me, and it was the greatest. I mean, it was truly the greatest thing. She got me. I didn't know it was happening. All my friends were in my house. We were late because we were flying in from somewhere. Half of my friends had too many martinis already, so buzzing electricity, and I walk into the kitchen and Nozawa was there. The greatest surprise of all time. From that, we became really good friends. And many, many years later, we finally, Adi and I, my wife and his wife, Yumiko, were out to dinner. We got him to agree to take his first vacation since 1987.
Whoa.
Yeah, to actually leave the country and do something. And I think he had too many scotches that night, so he said yes. Because I didn't think he was going to.
Right.
But Yumiko and Adi got him to say yes, so we held him to it. So we went to Tuscany, rented a villa, and my son Gavin, and was I think 6 months old, and we happened to place at a great kitchen, and we loved being there because I love Italy. They were having a great time. And we had a chef come and was teaching us, how to make risotto. But I had some red wine. Nosy had some scotch, and he just said, I want to do, I think we should do sushi together. And I literally thought he meant tomorrow we should make sushi. And my response was, where are we going to get the fish? He said, no. And he actually meant that he wanted to go into this business. So it was not in something I wanted to do. It's even at the time I told him I couldn't because I was doing something else, but it stayed with me. And then a couple of years later, I came back around and said, you know what, let's talk about whatever this thing was that you were talking about to me in Tuscany.
What do you think it was that he saw in you where he thought all of a sudden, right, after having a celebrated sushi restaurant as the chef and as the father of that experience, that he would need you or would look for a partner? Why Jerry Greenberg?
I don't know. I mean, I just know we were friends, and I think it was so. It wasn't crazy that he asked, but I also know that, as you might imagine, he had a million people coming at him all the time. You know, this sushi is amazing. We could, take you to the stars. We could do all these different things, and a lot of people assumed that I asked him, and I didn't, and I wouldn't have because I didn't think that was something that he would be interested in. And that wasn't something I was interested in. So I think if you asked Nozawa, if he were sitting here, he would just say that we knew each other well enough that he thought we could do something together. So I think he inside had a desire, even though everybody who asked him, he said no. It wasn't that he was against the idea of doing something beyond where he was. I think the idea for him to do something with people that he didn't know made no sense to him. I don't know, but maybe he just had too many scotches that night.
But it sounds very intuitive. Very intuitive.
Yes, I don't think I don't think that he went through some. I think it just was like, I'm gonna, we're friends, so maybe we'll do something together.
Yeah.
And he ignored the fact that I was running a company at the time in a different business, so he wasn't actually thinking through whether I could do it or not. He just asked if I wanted to.
Yeah. What was it that you saw in him that you were like, yeah, I want to move forward with this, and I want to experiment, I want to step it up?
Well, that's easy. The food. No disrespect to Nozawa and how much I love him and Yumiko, and I do.
Yeah.
It's just the food. The food was just blindingly, to me, the best sushi that I'd ever had.
Yeah.
And it had been a passion of mine, trying it everywhere that I could. And that, if you kind of take that seed to whatever it is that I've done in the last 17 years in the food business, it's based on that singular idea that if something is just like, wow, then I'm excited. I'm in. It's like, let's figure it out. And I think that's why I couldn't let it go. Now, a different thing also happened, which is a few years before Nozawa asked me about this, and maybe this played into his thinking, I caught the bug for cooking. So I was spending a lot of time in the kitchen, in my spare time. I would invite Yumiko and Nozawa and friends over, and I'd cook a 5-course meal, a 6-course meal, whatever, all self-taught. And so maybe I guess he, now that I think about it, he obviously saw the passion that I had for food. Yeah. And that I was brave enough to cook him a meal.
That's right.
And even a couple times even served him some raw fish. So that's probably was part of it. But for me, because
he's like, this guy's got chutzpah.
It's something. He's something. He's either dumb or whatever he is. But so I, in 2001, really caught the bug for food. And then to cook it, to be in the kitchen, not the business of it, the making of it.
Right. I first went to Sugarfish probably close to 10 years ago, and I last went to Sugarfish today for lunch.
All right.
As it happens. And what strikes me about it, and like, I love sushi. I'm not a sushi expert. I used to live in Japan. But the food and the experience strikes me as simultaneously very warm and hospitable, and like kind of a deeply authentic experience, as well as systematized and simplified and kind of clean. And I'm wondering, could you take us back to like how you concept a restaurant through its systems? Maybe that took place when you were first working with Nozawa on the first location of Sugarfish. Maybe it's something you discovered later on. But talk to me about this craft that you have beyond the food, which is about the systems that you implement.
Sure. And yeah, there's a lot in my brain right now, the way you asked that question, because there's like different pieces.
Yeah, take it one step at a time.
And so to part of your question, was it later or at the beginning? Yes. It was very intentionally at the beginning, but we learned a lot. And because we didn't have a restaurant yet, we had to figure out what this was. And given my background on the kind of marketing, technology, and strategy side, I had done a lot of thinking about how do businesses emerge in an existing area without not doing something net new. We didn't invent sushi, right, at all. And the idea of being focused seeking the simplicity in things as a key to be able to simply do it better. Because how do you do better than somebody else if you do everything else that they do? Is it just going to work harder? Well, we're okay with that. Working harder is fine, but that's not really a strategy. So what is it that we can narrow our focus and tighten our lens to say, here's what we're going to do? And Nozawa already had the best sushi that we'd ever seen. So we spent time and time and time again rehearsing how do you do it. With Lele, who spent his career in the restaurant world, Tom, who spent a lot of his career in training in the restaurant world, but not always in the restaurant world. Me, who knew nothing about restaurants, Cameron, who knew nothing about restaurants, Clement, who knew nothing about restaurants, and Nozawa, who knows everything about restaurants. And just working through over and over, how is it going to work? What is it that we can do? What is the menu? How does the menu work? How does the kitchen work? How do we get the food? How often do we get the food? And I call it kind of the Rubik's Cube of just twisting this thing over and over and over until we can figure out, how does it work? What is Sugarfish? And Sugarfish emerged through that process after, 6 months, and then ultimately 12 months until we opened. But it evolved substantially in the first year from what it was. If you came to Sugarfish in the first 3 months, it's very different a year later than it was. And we are always seeking to learn. We do think if you want to deliver a product, in our case, food, how can we do this consistently, repeatably? And to us, that's, there's nothing more important than a guest having a bite. You had Sugarfish today. What'd you have today? What was your order?
It was a Nozawa, trust me.
Okay, so hopefully a couple of those bites, you took a bite, kind of closed your eyes, and and that's what we're after. And it does to your point. We think it takes some systematizing or processizing. It doesn't come from there. That's not the inspiration, and the art of what Nozawa does is not found in those places. But to repeat it over and over, we think it is found in focus and simplicity.
Yes. So could you take us back and tell me a story of a breakthrough that you had, could be in that first year, somewhere in the Sugarfish journey, of twisting that Rubik's Cube into place and discovering a systematic breakthrough?
Well, the first thing that I think of is we didn't have hand rolls.
Okay.
When we first opened. Why? Because we didn't think we could move the hand roll from the pass and the kitchen to the guest fast enough, and the seaweed would degrade. And you say, well, that's why Kazunori exists. Well, it is why Kazunori exists. But we were like, we just can't do it. We're like, our understanding of the systematic approach for the kitchen and how it needed to execute was like, we can't do it. So we didn't. We operated for 6 months and then watched what actually happened. And it occurred to us, wait a second, no, we can do this. We'll have to add some labor, which is a cost, but we understand what that cost is. So in April, we opened in June. In April, we rolled out the hand rolls, which was a massively important moment. We had thought we couldn't do it. Maybe we were right or wrong that we couldn't do it at the time. But once we started operating and we saw how the systems actually worked in the real world, rather than the test world or in on the whiteboard, we figured out we could do this. And look, Kazunori doesn't exist if there's no hand rolls. It's what it is. But for Sugarfish, I think that was a hugely important moment. But there were a number of things like that where we assumed we couldn't do something, and then we realized that we could. And there's probably some other things the other way too that we thought we could do that we couldn't. But that theme has played out across, Uovo, Hi-Ho, Matū, is that we have to be constantly learning and adding to the knowledge that we have. Because our experience tells us we don't get it all right at the beginning, or honestly, we don't think we ever get it all right at all. We have to keep getting better.
Yeah. So in terms of breakthroughs and improvement and focus, talk to me about the rice while we're still on Sugarfish. So you don't use a readily available commercial rice cooker, if I understand it.
I can dive in, or do you want to finish your thought?
Well, talk to me about the inadequacy of the rice that you saw on the market, or the rice preparation methods you saw, how you discovered that, and how you fixed that problem for Sugarfish.
Yeah, it's an interesting story and tells you a lot about. We could tell this story over a dozen times across each business. The 4 different businesses that I kind of mentioned a second ago. But this is a good story to drive home that we think that, driving through past when somebody tells you no, and you said, no, I'm going to find a yes. I'm going to find a way. There has to be a way. So let's take this.
That's entrepreneurship.
Yes, I think it is. I think it's a big part of it.
It's refusing to take no for an answer.
And finding a solution some way, somehow. So it's crazy because I don't know anything about restaurants, but the rice cooker that we use, you can buy it on Amazon. You just can't use it in a restaurant.
Oh, because it's not NSF certified, or it's not food, the food safety standard isn't industrial or commercial grade.
Keep myself safe on some of the things I might say here, but most small sushi restaurants use that rice cooker.
Right.
But
because they're one-off shops.
Well, and they're small batch, right? Now, if you're a bigger sushi restaurant, you go to the bigger commercial ones.
Mm-hmm.
The bigger commercial ones burn the bottom of the rice.
Mm-hmm.
And if somebody wants to tell me that's not true, then I will happily join them in our test kitchen any day, because we have the big ones too.
Mm-hmm.
And they burn the bottom of the rice. The little ones in small batches. So we're like, okay, we're just going to do this. But along comes the health department and tells us we can't. And we're like, I don't understand. Everybody does. They're like, we don't care that everybody does. You can't. So I personally then went down a process where we had to have the machines, the bowls tested. I mean, it was crazy what it took. But they are now, everybody can happily understand, we are allowed to use our rice cookers in the restaurants because we have each and every one of them certified to be able to be used in the restaurant. And that process, at its time, as I recall, it cost about $50,000 to do that. I mean, the rice cookers cost, I don't know, they cost $400. I mean, it was, and we tried other avenues. We tried sourcing some things directly. We tried to get one of the manufacturers in Japan to actually certify it. Like the stuff that we went through, and we finally said, all right, I guess we're going to have to do it the hard way. We're going to have to test it ourselves, prove the testing, have the field labeling done and everything else. But that's an example of what was the alternative. Well, I guess the alternative was to use a rice cooker that would not give us the rice that we need, and then it won't be Nozawa's food. And then if it's not Nozawa's food, exactly why are we doing this?
Right.
What's the point?
Right.
The point isn't good enough, right? It isn't, to us, the point is never, is it good enough, or is it no one will notice? It's like,
does it meet our standard?
Do we think it's what we want to put our names on every day?
Fascinating. And let's continue talking about sort of systems, because I think, even before I met you and even before I talked to you, I had this sense that your restaurants, with Sugarfish being a shining example, but really all of them, is as they're all meant to have multiple locations. I mean, maybe not all of them, but a number of them are meant to have multiple locations, except for maybe Nozawa Bar. And rather than the food getting worse with scale, the food gets better with scale because of these systems, because of sourcing. It just seems like it's kind of like the DNA of the company and kind of how you think about these standards and the focus. And maybe we shift gears to talk about Matū. Mm-hmm. So let's explore as a dish the cheesesteak at Matū. Like, how did you end up thinking about cheesesteak as a menu item, as a preparation for a steak restaurant? Like, where does that come from?
It's similar to, you could say, like, where did Hi Ho come from, or
that's my next question.
Where did Uovo come from?
Yeah.
Or where did Matū itself come from? But let's take that very specific thing. Okay, so I'm from South Jersey. For people who don't know, that's near Philadelphia.
Yep.
So I grew up, and then particularly when I got older and went to college, I mean, cheesesteaks, love them.
Yeah.
Love cheesesteak. And I was reminded by my brother, who still lives in South Jersey, Brian, that when the cheesesteak on the Matū menu came to be, well, I think it was 3 years ago, he reminded me that the first time I had made him a cheesesteak was 5 or 6 years prior, And I haven't even forgotten that. So the cheesesteak was just a passion. We got this crazy beef from First Light, this 100% grass-fed Wagyu beef,
From New Zealand?
from New Zealand.
And where you're a partner?
Why I'm a meaningful owner. So full disclosure, right?
Yeah.
I wasn't then. That's not how it happened the other way around. Hi Ho found this crazy beef. It's the only restaurant, only burger place that has grass-fed Wagyu as what it uses. And I fell in love with the business, became part of an owner. But you asked about cheesesteak. So now I have this beef. And Jason Ross, who's CEO, one of the owners of First Light, kind of nudged me on a steak restaurant. I had developed a steak restaurant outline 2013. Why? Because I love to cook steak. I mean, that's where this stuff. I love to cook steak, but I put it on the shelf because I couldn't find grass-fed, grass-finished meat that was to the quality that I wanted. So all of a sudden, I've got this beef because I got Hi Ho going on with the Hi Ho business team, and I don't know exactly when I did it first, but I made a cheesesteak because that's what somebody from South Jersey would do if they're in the restaurant business and they have beef.
And a cheesesteak is shaved beef, or what is the actual?
The end result is chopped or
Chopped.
jammed. So
What cut of steak is it?
so the original, whatever, 100 years ago, whatever, people would say ribeye.
Okay.
That's what it is.
So fatty cut, very savory.
Ours is a blend of ribeye and sirloin.
Okay.
But you can have different cuts. But yeah, you want some intramuscular marbling if you can get it. And people make them different ways. We go the long conversation about this, but
Yeah.
we take sliced meat and put it on the griddle, and we cook them one at a time. And then you're chopping it as it cooks. Chop it, put some cheese on it. But it's beef, cheese, a bun, which can be debated whether it should have sesames or not. Ours does.
Which is a phenomenal choice. The sesames, the density of sesame seeds on your Matū bun is exquisite.
Our wonderful baker, the company's called Bread, makes a custom Hi Ho bun, and she makes for us a custom bun for the cheesesteak. I grew up in the no, they don't belong. Sesames don't belong on a cheesesteak. And a couple.
There are mafia wars fought over this in South Jersey.
But a couple really good places in Philly did it or do it, and then when we started doing this, we're like, you know what, we're in the sesame seed camp. And I say in the restaurant world, I mean sometimes, or in any world, sometimes things just work out the way you kind of hoped, and the cheesesteak has worked out that way. Because what did we really hope for? I hoped for people that were from Jersey, Philly, and would eat that cheesesteak and say, you know what, that's about as good as it gets. It's in the conversation. We're not trying to say that we're better than every cheesesteak that's ever been made, but I would proudly serve our cheesesteak in Philadelphia and say, no, it's a real cheesesteak.
Oh, yeah. Well, especially because a lot of cheesesteaks are not using that quality of ingredients.
Well, we definitely,
I mean,
have an unfair advantage.
Yours
in that
is
regard.
a Beverly Hills cheesesteak. I mean, it's upper crust. And for those out there in kind of radio land who have never been there or don't live in Los Angeles, I went last Thursday, and we showed up right before noon, and we waited an hour. And there's a whole empty dining room, but you can only get it at the bar, and only the bar is open. And the poor hostess, who was doing a great job, but she was overwhelmed with people. People come in and be like, "Oh yeah, I'm just for one." Be like, "Great, yep," but have to be honest. There are 26 people ahead of you right now, and this is a cult cheesesteak.
Well, we're just glad that people love it. I mean, we really are. And then, but back to one of your first questions. One thing that's common across all of this, there's 4 different businesses: the sushi business, the burger business, the pasta business, the steak business. But it's crazy. Talk about a happy accident. In each case, we have a group of people that are the team, the founding team, and we all think alike. Like we all are on this. We all think. I mean, they're not. The businesses aren't the same. Obviously, Nozawa Bar is a little bit different from Hi Ho. Uovo is different from Matū. And like Lely is on 2 of the teams with me, but we all have developed the same way to think about our passion is food, It's funny. We actually say that we're food centric, which is kind of silly. Wouldn't all restaurants be food centric?
No,
but right,
a lot
exactly.
of them are vibe dining.
Right, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah,
right.
some people
there's
want that.
There's many ways to fail in the restaurant business, and there's probably many ways to succeed.
Yeah,
and we don't think we got the corner on all of that, but we do have a way that we think about stuff, and it has to do with that bite being a wow, and also, as you said, you started talking about before, but using scale to drive quality north and cost south, or cost sideways. It's already cost south in this world. But how do we give people a bite that really sets them back, but then also not feel like, that we've charged so much for it that they can't do it again soon.
right.
And that's fundamentally, kind of that business thinking is common across all the businesses.
Do you have any other examples of scale to drive quality and the experience? Maybe in the fish buying or in other ingredient sourcing or wherever it may be?
Yeah, I mean, let me think. There are many. I can tell you where sometimes you have to get ahead of yourself. So I mentioned that we have a custom bun at Hi Ho, and so we have a custom bun at Hi Ho, and it, as a separate conversation, we could talk about food, ingredients, clean, minimal process. Like, that's a passion for me, deep passion. And I can't understand why some people will be trying to eat something good for them. And if you just stop and look at the ingredients list, like the bun that everybody else uses has like 22 ingredients on it. Like, so we could foray into that for a second, but we needed a custom made bun for us, but we only have one Hi Ho. So how do you get that done?
Right.
Doing custom stuff like that is much easier when we're larger.
Of course.
But sometimes we've been able to, probably because, Sugarfish was successful, get some people to come along with us and make a bet on us earlier, because if you look at Sugarfish, we run a wholesale fish market ourselves. So we can buy fish we can and do buy from fish anywhere in the world, because we have our own wholesale market. And
what does that mean, wholesale market?
So in LA, people think of the fish markets. There are wholesalers. Now, we actually for a while did sell to other people. We're not doing that any longer. We're now just focused on only selling to ourselves. But it puts us in the flow with all other wholesalers and importers of being able to get the best fish anywhere. That's something we did in 2019. We opened Sugarfish in 2007. We always knew that might happen. We didn't want to have to do it. So we worked with our partners who were wholesalers, and ultimately got to the point where they couldn't deliver what we needed. So now we work in collaboration with other wholesalers. But that's an example of taking the scale and using it to drive. Did we do it to reduce cost? No, in fact, we didn't. We did it to improve quality. And has it reduced cost? Maybe a little bit. And there's been, since COVID, there's obviously been a lot of distortion is the wrong word, but hard to tell which way prices really would have been going otherwise.
Yep.
So it's hard to make a compare.
Yeah, there's been a lot of inflation.
But and another example is like Uovo. Again, I mean, I heard a funny story yesterday. A friend of mine, Peter, said that he's got a friend who's from Italy and he asked, "Hey, do you ever eat in like Italian restaurants?" Because this person's from Italy. And this person, she said, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, have you ever been to Uovo?" Because he's a friend of mine. She's like, "Yeah, it's really good. But I don't buy for a minute that they make that pasta over there and fly it here. That'd have to cost $100. And he laughed and we laughed. And it's like, well, okay. But
because it is made in...
Because we... yes, we...
Bologna?
We in Bologna. But not we buy it in Bologna. We, Pino, Stefania, who've been with us since 2016, and we opened Uovo in 2017, built, to your process, like, where did the system start at the beginning, and built an approach that, as far as we know, has never been done before, to take fresh, handmade egg pasta, make it in the old school, artisanal, not extruded, sheeted and cutted, as it's called, and send it here. and then serve it to people here so people can actually eat pasta like it is in Bologna because it is pasta
Unreal.
from Bologna. Now, again, I mean,
So you're air freighting it daily, weekly?
we don't tell people how often we're doing it, but it is
But not frozen. It's just
it's
refrigerated.
not frozen. It's not frozen, nor is it dried.
Right. It's just
It is
refrigerated.
temperature
It's fresh
controlled,
pasta.
and it's resting.
Yeah.
Because it's something that we learned as a happy accident, that resting for pasta is a thing, which we didn't know. But once we found that out, we're like, oh, how about that?
And that lets it dry out slightly, and the gluten.
It's not to let it dry, but
protein-
it's just like many things. If
Yeah.
you let them, there's a reaction to letting them settle into a certain state.
Right.
But to your question about scale, you're not going to do that to build one Uovo.
How many locations do you have?
5.
Wow, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, so we have our 5th one opened in Pasadena a year ago. We think it's excellent. We
Yeah.
do, of course. I mean, and again, making fresh pasta by hand is something I learned 25 years ago, and I used to teach all my friends how to do it. And that seems like with hand, without even a fork, with just your hands. But that's an example of investing in the scale and hoping that it works. Because if there was only one Uovo, it would never have made sense to build, let's say, call it there, a laboratory,
Right.
in Bologna. So that's another example that comes to mind. But there are many.
Fattorio.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's very cool, and it's so true, because if you have a single location, you have really no chance but to either make it in house or buy it off the rack. And so in this case, you get to work with specialist partners and fabricators, bakers, to create something that's of scale. That's beautiful.
And so there's scale, and then there's also integration that allows for the information to be moved down the supply chain, which is, I think, a huge unlocking mechanism for value.
Absolutely. You must be like a masochist, because why do you feel the need to launch so many concepts? Like, you have a successful restaurant in Sugarfish. Why not just do more locations? Why do you need a burger restaurant? Why do you need a steak restaurant? Why do you need a pasta restaurant? Like, what is it in you that needs to do more concepts?
Oh, I mean, I'm laughing as you're saying that. What I think of is I'm a very relationship-driven person, and ultimately, like with Hi-Ho, good buddy of mine, Ajay, I was making burgers, and he's like, we got to do this, and he wouldn't stop. So I was like, all right, we'll do this. And like with pasta, Lele and I are founders of the sushi business, and with pasta, Lele and I are making pasta all the time, and so we're talking all the time, probably more than Ajay and I were talking, and we're like, we just need to do this. There's like this. We need to bring this forward. And there's a part of me that says, if we're doing something that we really think is good enough, that it warrants building a restaurant around, it kind of gets the momentum of itself. Because honestly, am I a masochist? Maybe. Like it's such a tough business.
Yeah.
And anybody who's not in this business.
Well, and every time you launch a new one, that's the risk of, will I get product market fit? Will the systems work? Will the economics work? Right?
Oh yeah, there's all the risk, but just the restaurant business, when I got into it 17 years ago, was probably the toughest business that there is. It hasn't gotten easier in the last 17 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
Let me just say that it is much harder to operate a restaurant in every way than it was 17 years ago, and it's so hard for people. But that's part of. But again, these are different businesses. It's not like because like we opened up Kazunori as a new thing in the same business in 2014, which is its own thing, intense. But starting a new business, but luckily it's a separate team. So that's different. But people have asked me, what are you going to do something else? And I always say, I hope not. I mean, it's not the game plan. It's
Right.
just falling in love with something.
Yes.
And then just going like, well, I guess. But you got to fall in love with something. I do anyway. Fall in love with the food, create it, know it, understand it, and fall in love with it. And then say, all right, maybe we'll do something. And then say, is there something here? Can this sustainably work or not? Just because you love the food doesn't mean that there's a thing. And then if you get that and you're dumb enough to try it, it may or it may not work. But it just, again, it comes just from the love of the food. And if I never opened up another restaurant business, would I be okay? Yes, I'd be okay. I'd be fine. It's not filling a need that I have, but can I say that it won't happen? I'd be stupid to say that it won't happen.
What's the through line through all the different restaurants? What's the red thread that ties them all together?
It really is the passion for the food. I mean, it's so simplistic.
How do you
and
culturally protect the soul of that at Sugarfish in particular?
it's not hard for us to keep the culture at the intent level because it's the same people. We know what we're after, and thankfully none of us have changed and decided that, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. We all still want to do it together. Now, making sure that culture is set with all of our people, that's a huge job.
How do you go about doing that?
Well, Lely and Tom done an amazing job. I mean, I just tell you that. I mean, it's there's a couple things that we do, and if you look at literally almost every single one of our management and our upper management layer came in the front door in the dish pit or the host stand. I mean, we don't bring people in.
You develop and promote people from within.
In almost every single case, like literally 99% of the time.
Very healthy.
It's not, and in doing so, and our people stay with us in those roles for a long time, and they're amazing.
It also makes the entry level roles more attractive.
It does,
because you can advance in the company.
If you want to join any of our companies, and you really want a career, it's a great place.
That is rare. That is rare now in hospitality.
We will do almost anything we can not to hire from the outside. Not that we haven't done it before, and it's not that we think it's an awful strategy, but setting the culture, it's really difficult. But you need to know what is the culture that you want, what defines it, and then you have to have methods and means to put them in place. And we have both in that we know what we want. We articulate our culture. We have 5 slides, if you will, in a PowerPoint that say very carefully chosen words. This is what we expect.
I've also heard you say that you always pay for your meals at your own restaurants, and you always wait in line.
I do.
And you said that if I can break the rules, then I'm modeling to other people that the rules don't matter, and they don't know what rules do matter and what rules don't matter. And so if I obey all the rules, then that indicates that these are all these rules are the rules that are important, and you live by the same rules as everyone else.
I do. A lot of people don't believe that. People who know me know that it's true. And people will ask me, and I get lectured by some people how stupid I am. And I get some people asking why. Whether I'm right or wrong to do what I'm doing, I think our people understand at least why I'm doing it.
Oh, yeah. On this show, I interview what I call business artists, and that term means 2 things. The first definition are people that are creatives and that are artists that use business as a means to scale and for self-expression and as a basically kind of a vehicle for bringing their creation out into the world. And then the other definition of a business artist is a business person that uses the decisions they make and how they run the business almost with the soul of an artist and the particularities, the specificity of an artist. For example, like Warren Buffett, he's a great writer, but he's not necessarily a creative. He's not an artist in a traditional sense. But the way that he constructed Berkshire Hathaway is with the deliberate construction of an artist, I would say, or a sculptor. Right. And you strike me as, well, first, you strike me as both, but you strike me more as seeing the decisions and the culture and the systems of this business as something that should be taken as seriously and as specified as an artist would.
Well, I definitely on that. I agree with the second. I agree with everything you said, but I agree with that insofar as I'm not an artist, but I would imagine if I were, that I would take very seriously how things are crafted and where things are and how they're put and that they have a place and then you're expressing some very specific things. And about that, yes, how we are crafted as an organization, we take unbelievably seriously as an artist might. And so yes, that makes sense to me. And if you said to me like, am I more creative or am I more? I would never have said I was more creative, but in the food realm, in the kitchen,
yeah, you are.
I just love to be whether I am, but like that. In the kitchen, I'm in the kitchen for the pure creativity.
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah.
You know, it's not about being in the kitchen trying to find a business. That I wouldn't show up to the kitchen if that's what. But like
Right.
given a choice, I will cook. I could be in the kitchen in kind of different modes.
Yeah.
I can be in a complete exploration. Like when I cook for a lot of friends, I'm like, tonight's a test kitchen night.
Yeah.
And don't all tell me everything's great. Because that's the rule. If I cook for you, you cannot tell me everything's great because you're wasting my time. Okay? If you don't want to say anything, don't say anything. But like, if you're gonna give me feedback, please tell
Make
me
it
the
real.
truth. Tell me the truth.
Make it real.
I mean, I can take it. It's
Yeah.
fine. But sometimes it's decidedly, like you're saying, just trying to bring different things together. But sometimes it's not that at all. Like I'll cook for 20 people, a 6 or 7 course meal. And one of my friends might offer to be a sous chef, and that's tremendous stress and pressure. But I love it.
Yeah.
Like I still don't. It's just like
Stress and pressure to have another person in the kitchen with you?
no, to cook for 20
Oh, to
people,
cook for 20
6-course
people.
meal.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and it's stupid. You know?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I'll
It's
lay
not
out,
about technique.
and
or,
I'll lay out a plan and
yeah,
say,
it's about
is this
keeping
even
it hot.
Is this even possible?
Yeah.
But I love that. It's like
Yeah.
and having the fun and then some things people love and some things people are honest enough to say that wasn't so great. And I'm always harder on stuff than what other people are. But there's something creative about cooking.
I love that too. We should cook together sometime.
I'd love it. I mean,
I
like,
love the
any
reverse
excuse.
engineering,
Any excuse.
mise en place, and all that. So we'll move on to our quickfire round, at large and off the cuff. We ask everyone the same question to begin with, which is, are you glad that social media exists, or do you wish it never existed?
Wish it never existed.
Great. No explanation needed. You go to a sushi restaurant that is somewhere that's not Sugarfish. What's your favorite roll or sushi to get?
Well, obviously, if it's a quick hit, I'm going to say Kazunori. I mean, but I don't think.
Oh, no. Outside of your domain,
I didn't think
Greenberg.
Well, you said roll,
I'm
so I was
sorry.
like, well, roll. It
I'm
must be
sorry. Yeah.
You know, I don't eat sushi other places. It's been a long, long time. I mentioned I don't even eat it when I'm in Tokyo.
Do you have a favorite cut of fish then, or do you have a favorite type of sushi?
Like if I was
Like
going to eat one bite of sushi?
Yeah, if you have one bite.
Well, I mean, there's a couple things, but if a great bite of chutoro nigiri is hard to.
And so that's fatty tuna belly?
It's the medium fatty.
Medium fatty.
It's medium fatty, and it may or may not come from the belly, which most people don't quite understand. But
Right.
uni's hard to beat, and I know a lot of people don't like uni. And there's something we do at Sugarfish that we're the first people to do, which is
sea urchin.
That's sea urchin.
Yeah.
But
Santa Barbara, Channel Islands is amazing.
Southern
sea urchin.
California coast has the best there is.
Yeah.
And then we did something that other people hadn't done before, but as nigiri, we do pink lobster.
Ooh.
Which is from New Zealand, which is really
Beautiful.
really good.
Raw or steamed?
Raw. Nothing done to it.
Beautiful. Beautiful. What is your running shoe of choice?
Hoka.
You like the Hoka,
Well, I've been wearing Hokas for.
but since before they were cool.
But that's the funny thing. I mean, I think
You made 'em
15,
cool.
16 years.
Wow.
I didn't know they became cool. Literally, somebody had to say to me, "Oh, you wear those like everybody else." I'm like, no, I didn't realize that they actually became cool because they were certainly not cool when I first started wearing them.
Yeah. What's your favorite Italian dessert?
Oh, I mean, there's a lot to choose from there, but I would probably, what would I end up, if somebody has a gianduja gelato, so gelato with the chocolate hazelnut flavor, I'm getting it. I mean, like, it doesn't matter what time of day or where it's happening. I'm going to have it.
That sounds so good. Oh, makes me want gelato. Is there a dish that you've obsessed over in R&D that never made it to the menu at a restaurant?
There are a few. There's one that comes to mind immediately. I can't tell you what it is because this is gonna show up somehow, some way. It involves caviar, but I can't say any more than that. But if you hung around the kitchen enough, you'd be like, "Oh, yeah, that's right, you make that thing." But it's just something that it's kind of a unique thing that I love, and every time I make it, I'm like, "We got to serve this somewhere." But
Blini bar. A la Greenberg.
No blinis though. No blinis.
What's a pet peeve you have when you go out to eat? Like, what do most restaurants not get?
Well, my friends would all tell you that the list is a mile long.
Okay.
That I'm unbelievably critical, but I am.
Lay it on us.
But I'm critical
What's
of
at
our
the
own
top of the
restaurants. But I
list?
walk in my own restaurants and right? This is what I do. But,
yeah.
Oh, top of the list, probably the first couple things come to mind. One is dishes that have one, two, or more ingredients than they ought to have. Overcomplicating food. It's just not for me. And I get it. Some people like it. I do not eat for innovation. I eat because I want something to taste great.
Yeah.
And simple expressions. It's not going to be a surprise given what we do, but simple expressions of ingredients is absolutely more to me. So I really, it drives me nuts when I'm like, wow, that would have been good. 2 ingredients less than what it had. But as critical as I am in other restaurants, I'm critical in our own restaurants. So
it's like the Japanese saying that something is perfect not when there's nothing left to add, but when there's nothing left to subtract.
Exactly. And
I love that idea of subtraction design.
And thankfully, in the last 10, 15 years, food has become a little bit simpler because the whole molecular thing was not,
oh my gosh,
was not for me.
Yeah.
I couldn't get it. I don't understand it. But yeah, that's probably the top of the list.
Is there a moment in your restaurant career that made it all worth it?
I'll give a boring answer, but I believe what I'm saying, which is no. It's truly sitting in a restaurant with my wife and in one of our restaurants and noticing somebody next to us kind of talking about something they're eating, and then somebody literally does what the first time I did. They put something in their mouth and they kind of, you see the moment. You see the wow moment, and like. That's it. But and
it's as good as it gets.
It is as good as it gets. It's like, and guess what? If we're good at what we do and try hard enough, we can get that all the time.
Absolutely.
It's not easy though.
Yeah.
And but that's one thing Nozawa taught me, which is how to understand when a person really loves, like really focus on the person's face, their eyes.
So...
Don't go by what people tell you because they're all going to tell you it's
right.
great. But can you read a person and tell? Did that food kind of stop them for a second?
Right.
Yeah, and that's an opportunity every day.
That's friggin' awesome. We close with every guest answering the same question, which is, take us through a recipe that you cook in enough detail that the listener at home could recreate it. Not quite cookbook level detail, but what's a go-to recipe that you make at home that you could take us through?
And that won't take me all day to explain.
Correct.
Well, this might also go in the pet peeve of mine category. I learned a long time ago how to make scrambled eggs.
Great.
A lot of people make scrambled eggs. I get a little frustrated. I think people should make them better than they do.
Yep.
I didn't invent this, but this kind of wraps up in a nutshell who we are. To make scrambled eggs, there's just a few things you need to know. They're relatively simple, but you have to just simply understand it and then do it, and then you can make great scrambled eggs. This is not the old French style of making scrambled eggs.
Not the Jacques Pepin, turn the heat off, slow stirring.
No. And there's nothing wrong with it. That's fine. But that's not a scrambled egg you want to eat every day, not in my opinion. No, it's a high heat, and I'll give shout out to Alton Brown because he published something about this a long time ago when I was teaching myself how to cook. So it's super simple, and they're great. So you just take 2 eggs, put them in a bowl, little salt, little pepper, 1 pinch, depending on the side of your hand of salt will cover. A little bit of half and half. If you want to put some cream or milk, I just throw some half and half. And so you whisk it, but you whisk it until it's combined, but you don't stir all the bubbles out like you're going to make a crepe. You're not trying to beat it. Mm-hmm. You're just trying to combine it, and there's still large bubbles. So that's one key. You put your pan non-stick on your heat on high. Yeah, on high. I've taught people how to do this, and they still go medium high. No, on high. Mm-hmm. Take the stick of butter, do a little like paint the pan. You don't need to put a bunch of butter. It's just a light covering of butter, and the butter starts to bubble. And when it stops bubbling, it's about 350 degrees. It's time to go.
Yep.
But so it'll start to brown after that point. So the butter is now stopping its bubbling. You got to be. I taught my daughter how to do this. Just like always be ready. Get your plate.
Right, because you can't let the butter brown and burn.
It's going to be fast, but you throw them in the pan, move them around with your rubber spatula, and you're done in anywhere from 20 to 40 seconds.
Yeah.
It could be even less than that if you're cooking, in a bigger enough pan.
Yeah.
But the eggs are still undercooked as you lift the pan off because it's getting so hot, and then they finish on the plate. And I like a soft scramble. And I've made that for 1 million people. And like, wow, these are really good scrambled eggs. I'm like, it's so simple, but teach people how to do it, and they go, "Wait, what? Do I stir it really hard?" It's just a couple small techniques that if you could just simply master. So yeah, I've happily shared that with lots of people in the kitchen, and they're like, "Oh, that's really great." But the next time I see them making scrambled eggs, they seem to have forgotten.
Oh, beautiful. Well, I know what I'm making tomorrow morning.
Let me know,
Jerry.
Report back.
This is a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on At Large.
No, this has been a lot of fun, Scott. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning into At Large. Today's episode was produced by Sick Bird Productions. Our theme song is Son of Sanford by Motion Worker. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and by email at atlargeshow.com. Follow me at SWH Norton on Instagram and Twitter, and DM me about the guests you want to hear on the show.